Welcome to a deep dive into the world of the samurai.
Ooh, samurai.
Get ready for a history that's full of twists and turns. We might even uncover some surprises along the way.
Definitely some surprises, and we're going way beyond those typical samurai stereotypes.
You know, the lone warrior with a sword. We're going to be exploring everything. Their origins, their culture, and how they evolved over centuries.
And you might even be surprised to find out how much they still impact Japan today.
I'm ready. Let's unpack all of this. One of the things that really jumped out at me while I was doing research for this is that the samurai, they weren't always the powerful elite that we see in movies and in pop culture.
Yeah, that's true. If we go all the way back to the Heian period, like 794 to 1185, we see the earliest samurai. They were working as skilled horse archers for aristocratic families.
So like high-level bodyguards almost.
Yeah, exactly. Protecting their patrons' land, their interests.
I was reading that only about 20% of Japan's land is suitable for agriculture.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference.
Yep.
Because with limited farmable land, controlling those fertile areas, it was everything. So these early samurai, with their skills on horseback, they became essential for protecting those resources.
So it makes sense that in this environment, their role would naturally evolve from protectors to warriors. Right.
Exactly.
And then, from what I was reading, things really started heating up. These two powerful clans, the Minamoto and the Taira,
Oh, yeah.
battling it out for supremacy.
Classic.
Kind of like Game of Thrones, but in Japan.
Yeah, a great comparison. And out of this chaos emerges a key figure, Minamoto Yoritomo. He establishes the Kamakura shogunate in 1185 and becomes Japan's first shogun.
So basically a military dictator. But what about the emperor? Wasn't the emperor like the top dog in Japan?
Okay, so technically, yes, the emperor was still the figurehead, but the shogun held the true power. So think of it this way. The emperor was the symbol of Japan,
Right.
but the shogun actually ran the government. And guess who was helping him run the government? You got it, the samurai. And so this was a major turning point, with the samurai really now holding the reins of power.
So they went from bodyguards to the ruling class. That's quite a journey.
It is.
But I'm curious, how did this new samurai-led government, how did they handle external threats? Because, you know, being an island nation.
Oh, they faced a big one, the Mongols.
Oh, right.
Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, he set his sights on Japan.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious. And he launches these massive invasions in 1274 and 1281.
No, this is where the famous kamikaze winds come in, right?
Exactly. Both times, massive typhoons, which the Japanese viewed as divinely sent, they decimated the Mongol fleets.
Wow.
Yeah. And these storms were so devastating that they became part of the kamikaze myth. Kamikaze literally meaning divine wind.
It's interesting to think what would have happened if those winds didn't come in.
Right.
Like, how would history have played out?
Completely different.
It's a huge turning point.
Yeah, it is. But even with the Mongols repelled, there was still plenty of internal conflict brewing.
There always is.
Always. So the Ashikaga family, they take over from the Minamoto in 1333.
Okay.
But their grip on power was weak, and the country fractured into dozens of independent states, each ruled by a daimyo, or a feudal lord.
So back to Game of Thrones again.
Yeah, pretty much.
But wouldn't that chaos create opportunities for, ambitious individuals?
Absolutely. This era, known as the Sengoku Jidai.
Sengoku Jidai.
Yeah. It was a time of incredible upheaval,
Yeah.
but also one of great opportunity. Imagine, you're a talented samurai, you're ambitious, you've got a knack for strategy. Suddenly you can rise to power in ways that would have been impossible during those more stable times.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds ripe for some underdog stories.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of samurai who, rose from obscurity during this time?
Oh, absolutely. One fascinating figure is Hojo Sound. This guy started with 6 men.
6 men.
Yeah. And through shrewd tactics and, a little bit of luck.
Gotta have that.
Gotta have it. He built a dynasty that lasted for generations. Imagine that. From 6 men to ruling a whole province.
That's an incredible story. It's like something you'd see in a movie.
Right. I mean, no wonder this era is so popular in pop culture.
Right.
You've got the intense battles, the political intrigue, the shifting alliances, all these charismatic figures.
Yeah, it's giving me, Three Kingdoms vibes.
Yes. It's like the Japanese version of the Three Kingdoms, period.
I love that.
Another era that's full of conflict and those larger-than-life characters.
So with all this chaos and ambition, would battles really stand out from the Sengoku Jidai?
One that really changed the course of history was the Battle of Okehazama in 1560.
Okehazama.
Yeah. Picture this. You've got this young, ambitious daimyo named Oda Nobunaga,
Okay.
and he's facing off against Imagawa Yoshimoto, this powerful warlord with a much larger army.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And everyone thought Nobunaga was crazy for even attempting this, you know?
Yeah.
He must have had some kind of amazing strategy to even try.
I mean, he's going up against a way bigger force.
Right. But see, Nobunaga, he was a cunning strategist. And he used the cover of this raging thunderstorm to his advantage. Lightning flashing, rain pouring down. Nobunaga launches a surprise attack on Yoshimoto's camp while they were celebrating, catching them totally off guard.
Oh, that's clever.
Right. Using the element of surprise, the weather, to overcome these seemingly impossible odds.
Did it work?
Oh, it worked brilliantly. The battle was short, it was brutal, it was decisive.
Wow.
Yoshimoto was killed, his army routed, and Nobunaga emerges as a major force in Japan. This was a real turning point for him. It eventually leads to him deposing the shogun in 1568.
Wow. So this one battle just completely shook up the power dynamics.
It really did. And it wasn't just Nobunaga's strategic brilliance.
Yeah.
He was also a revolutionary when it came to warfare. He was willing to break with tradition to gain an advantage.
In what way?
Well, up until that point, samurai warfare relied heavily on mounted combat, individual duels, the classic lone samurai charging into battle.
Right.
But Nobunaga, he recognized the potential of firearms. He trained his ashigaru, essentially foot soldiers, to fire arquebuses and volleys.
Arquebuses?
Yeah, arquebuses were early muskets. Imagine the disruption this caused. Suddenly, the battlefield wasn't just dominated by those mounted samurai. These disciplined volleys of gunfire from foot soldiers, they changed the whole game.
That is revolutionary for the time.
Oh, totally. It showed that the samurai, even with their deep traditions, they were adaptable.
Forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So Nobunaga's on the rise, shaking things up. What happens next?
Sadly, Nobunaga's story ends in betrayal.
Oh, no.
He was assassinated in 1582. But his legacy lived on through his successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi.
Another ambitious figure.
Definitely. And he was brilliant both as a strategist and a politician. He manages to finally unify Japan after defeating the powerful Hojo clan in 1590.
So after decades of conflict, finally Japan is under one rule.
It was a huge moment. And Hideyoshi, he didn't stop there. He set his sights on conquering China by going through Korea.
Oh, wow.
But let's just say that campaign didn't go quite as planned.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious.
So what happened in Japan after Hideyoshi?
Well, after his death in 1598, the stage was set for another power struggle.
Of course.
This is where Tokugawa Ieyasu comes in. He wins the decisive Battle of Sekigahara in 1600.
Sekigahara.
Yep. And establishes the Tokugawa shogunate,
Okay.
ushering in a period of peace and stability that lasted for over 250 years.
Wow. Incredible. From chaos to unification to a long era of peace. It seems like the samurai finally got a break.
Well, not quite, because this peace that the Tokugawa shogunate brought, it brought stability, but it also led to some pretty significant changes for the samurai.
Interesting.
Their lives were about to transform in ways they could never have imagined.
Sounds like a story for part 2.
Yeah.
But before we get there, one more thing I want to touch upon.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about battles and all this political maneuvering.
Yeah.
But what about the philosophical and ethical code that guided the samurai? Like, what was Bushido? I keep reading about this.
Oh, Bushido. It's the way of the warrior. It wasn't just about swordsmanship or martial prowess. It was a complex set of principles that really shaped the samurai's entire life.
I'm intrigued.
Well, as we've seen, loyalty to one's lord was paramount, but Bushido went far beyond that. It emphasized honor, courage, self-discipline, ethical behavior, facing death without fear.
That sounds demanding.
It was a demanding code to live by. But to really understand Bushido, we need to delve a little deeper.
Go.
And I think that's a conversation for our next installment.
All right, listeners, buckle up. We'll be back soon to unpack the mysteries of Bushido and explore how the samurai navigated peacetime in part 2 of our deep dive into the samurai.